This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to episode 25 of Cooking with Grief, a comedy podcast in which two friends, both called Chris, each bring two topics to discuss, anything from the worlds of art, history, science, or how inflation rates affect novelty balloons. I'm Chris, but you may know me best as my wrestling alter ego, the Baboonus Maroonus. And joining me, as ever, on this audible odyssey of downloadable delight, is a man who deserves no introduction, but the format demands I offer him one. It's Chris.
Thank you for offering me that barest minimum of courtesy.
You can have a proper introduction if you want.
No, I think that's fine, Mr. Baboonus Maroonus.
That's Mr. Baboonus Maroonus to you. How are you? Are you well?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I had biltong as my pre-podcast snack, and let's see how my energy levels fare on this episode.
Nice bit of South African dried meat.
It's got to beat my usual fare of nothing.
Well, I didn't have my podcasting eggs, so see how I fare.
Well, because listeners may not be aware, we actually, for every episode, we record probably, 8, 9, 10 hours of content and strip it down to a lean half an hour. It's a real marathon of whatever this is.
Yeah, good metaphor.
Nailed it. Okay, so before we get into the podcast proper, Chris, have you got one of your signature Kurt Russell facts for us?
I do. I mean, it has been a while. I can't remember the last time we actually did one of these, because as much as we prided ourselves on having a semi-regular feature, it was actually quite difficult to keep finding stuff.
Yeah, we've been leaning very heavy on the semi part of the semi-regular. I could have phrased that better.
Yeah, leaning heavily on the semi. It's just,
Grow
Jesus.
up. You're a father of three. Facts about
no,
Kurt
I'm not.
Russell.
I am not a father of three or any number, just for the record. But I do have a fact about Kurt Russell. So acting wasn't his first choice career. He wanted to be a baseball player, and he actually was a professional in the minor leagues. But unfortunately, he was once in a very competitive game of air hockey at 2 a.m. in the morning, tore his rotator cuff and ended his career.
Oh, there's so many greats fallen by the wayside from over-competitive air hockey.
Exactly. So, Major League Baseball's loss was Hollywood's gain.
Wasn't he a child actor, though? So did he do a bit of acting then decide he wanted to be a bass player?
Yeah.
Baseball player, not bass player.
No, bass player that we know of.
Who am I to doubt a man of many talents?
He must have been one of those really annoying kids who was just good at everything. Whereas, the rest of us struggled in all aspects of life.
Yeah, we have to settle for
and then
nothing.
You got the kid who has to make the decision. It's like, do I want to become a millionaire playing sports or a millionaire acting?
It's a hard life.
Yeah.
Well, he's a great man, and a great man with many talents.
You still don't know who he is, do you?
I know he's an actor because I've listened to some of your Kurt Russell facts.
Right.
I'd be hard-pressed to name a film he's in.
I won't press you, hard or otherwise, for an answer then.
Maybe I should start coming up with a Kurt Russell facts and attempt to learn about him, but mine would be really obvious, like, he was in this film that everyone's heard of, and everyone goes, yeah, we know, that's why we know the name Kurt Russell. Did you know he has legs? Eh? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, what have you got for your first topic?
We actually have our very first listener-submitted topic. This one actually came from Ari over at Pop Culture and Mythology podcast. Obviously, we talk about Romans quite a lot. I'm sure you're aware that the Romans obviously created stuff that then got lost to time, during the Dark Ages. Some of those things we rediscovered later on, like sandals, but some of them we didn't. And one of the things we didn't, the Romans actually lost themselves, which was unbreakable glass. During the days of Emperor Tiberius, so he was the second Roman emperor after Augustus, so we're talking just a little bit. We're talking around Jesus time, maybe a bit after Jesus.
Most people refer to it as AD, not after Jesus time.
No, but I mean like Jesus time, like when Jesus was about, like around the year 0.
Yes.
Give or take.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's Jesus time.
A glassmaker had somehow come up with a way of making a shallow drinking vessel called a phial, which was made out of glass that couldn't break. Apparently it dented more like metal rather than shattering. like glass tends to do. Then, because Tiberius was apparently a massive dick, he said, does anybody know how to make this type of glass? The inventor said no, so Tiberius had him executed.
Oh, strong work, Tiberius.
It's a weird way of protecting your nation. One of our inventors has come up with something that could change the world. Let's kill him. Apparently he feared that the material could undermine the value of gold and silver, which is just a remarkably short-sighted way of saying, like, we have a new wonder material. And the only thought was, this will make my gold worth less. He's the fucking emperor. He could get the guy to only make it for him. Tiberius was a dick, though. Oh, I think it said he was alright at first, and then he just got bored of being an emperor, so he just, like, fucked off to Capri. And then was just a bit of a pedo. And
is enough time passed that we can say allegedly? Do we need to worry about... Well, you can't libel the dead.
I don't think it was alleged. I think it was just open, and, there's not much you could do about it. He's the emperor.
I cannot wait for when this podcast is popular enough that there is a demand for a Chris and Chris, like, history textbook, and you get to write in a book sentences like, he was a bit of a dick, he fucked off and was a bit of a pedo, bish bosh, chapter 2, Jesus time.
That's probably the stupidest way something's been lost to the Romans, but it's not actually the only thing, because they also invented a type of concrete as well, which nobody has been able to replicate ever since. Because apparently Pliny the Elder, the one who didn't write about Pompeii, the one who died in Pompeii, he said it was just a story, but some other authors said that it was a true story. But like I say, the Romans invented a type of concrete which, for some reason, still, modern concrete apparently doesn't do well with oceans and stuff, whereas stuff that the Romans built is still standing, that are in, sea defences and that stuff. And to this day, we still don't know why. Last year, I think it was, they found out what was in it. They finally worked out that it had volcanic ash and lime, and that reacted with seawater and the salt in seawater to make it harder rather than weaken like modern concrete does. But they still don't know how to make it. So maybe they did make super glass.
Good band.
Yeah. It's weird, the Romans, because they were
Chapter 2.
They came up with loads of, not even necessarily, great inventions, because most of the stuff got invented by the Greeks. They just found ways of actually using it to be useful. Greeks seem to just do stuff and then talk about it, and, with Socrates or whatever, and then that was that, and they never moved on. Whereas the Romans were we could use this to torture people. It's just they came up with all these great ideas, and yet almost all of them seem to get immediately turned to, how can we either conquer our enemies or torture our prisoners?
Well, I think the two very much come hand in hand, don't they? You do
a
little of A, little of B, repeat until you've got an empire spanning, across 3 continents.
Yeah, it's just super efficient ways of communication for the days, as in building roads and all that stuff to sort of make it easier to manage, and then just
straight lines and torture.
Yeah. Actually, there was a good stuff about Roman pragmatism I read was during the Punic Wars. So that was 200 BC-ish, I think. The Carthaginians were much better at sea warfare, but the Romans were better at land battles, because the Roman legions and whatnot were, even back then, were pretty good. But the Carthage was a seafaring nation, so they tended to do better in naval engagements. So the Romans invented this way of, it was a plank that they put on the ships that had grappling hooks on it. So you just got near an enemy ship, put this grappling hook thing on that basically roped your 2 ships together, and then let all the Roman legionaries just board the other ships. So they were basically we can't win naval battles, but if we turn a naval battle into a land battle, we'll win.
We make it a series of small land battles on wooden battlefields with an adjoining plank.
Yeah.
They're just slightly more organised pirates.
Oh yeah, that's it. Play to your strengths.
Yeah, to an extent. Maybe don't go as far as the Romans did.
No. I mean, you know how it is. You're at work, somebody asks you to list your strengths and weaknesses, and the next thing you know, you've conquered Asia Minor.
When they say, so what you say is your greatest strength? Don't pull out your boarding plank with grappling hooks, and then, burst open the office door and let in your legionaries and slaughter everyone in the HR department.
No, that's one way to get a promotion.
Well,
Declare yourself Emperor of, Emperor of the HR team. So yeah, so end of the lesson on lost Roman technology. And Tiberius being a bit of a dick.
copies of Chris's A Roman History will be available in I know, just scribbled notes stuffed into random park benches.
So end of the lesson on history for now. Over to you, Chris, for your first topic.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about practical jokes. Chris, are you a fan of practical jokes? Do you like them?
As long as they're actually funny. Like, if you do something that's funny and, like, a practical joke rather than just, walking up to somebody, punching them, and then when they get annoyed, being like, it's just a prank, bro. I don't know if you've seen those videos online where people go up to, literally go up to people and, they'll just do something really annoying, and then when they get punched in the face, they all of a sudden start being like, whoa, it's a prank, there's cameras.
Someone who does like practical jokes is the smugly handsome coffee ambassador and occasional film guy, George Clooney.
Oh.
Are you aware of his work?
I am.
As a film person, not necessarily as a coffee person.
Well, no, I'm aware of his adverts. We're obviously always looking for sponsors, so if Nespresso
George
do
Clooney,
want to...
if you're listening...
if George Clooney wants to sponsor us, or if Nespresso. What else? That was me skillfully sliding what's under the guise of pretending that I was trying to solicit more answers, casually sliding in the tagline from a major coffee brand in the hopes that they give us money.
I guarantee we'll be a lot cheaper than George Clooney. I will do it for a pack of pork scratching and a pat on the arm.
I want slightly more than that, but...
2 packs of pork scratchings. So he's well known for his practical japes, from sending hate-filled letters to fellow actors but signing them off as Brad Pitt, to tricking Mark Wahlberg into thinking he was putting on weight by bribing his personal trainer to fudge the measurements of his jeans. It even turns out that Gravity was just an elaborate practical joke gone wildly wrong, and he just happened to be documenting it, so they thought, oh, bang it out as a film then. But this is my favourite of his practical jokes that I read about this week. In 1993, Clooney was living with fellow actor Richard Kind, who had a cat, and that relative clause is pertinent to the anecdote. And the cat's litter tray was kept in the guest bedroom, away from the rest of the house. So, as a joke, every day for a month, Clooney went to where the litter tray was and removed the cat's daily deposits and disposed of them away from the house.
Well, that's nice. Good housekeeping.
Good house guest.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're a cat owner and it seems like for day on day your cat's not relieving itself in the way it normally has been, you might start to get a bit worried.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Kind sort of grew increasingly worried that there was something seriously wrong with his constipated cat, and eventually ended up taking it to the vet, saying, look, my cat's not had a shit in nearly a month. There must be something wrong with it. And the vet couldn't find anything wrong with it, and just, I don't know, cats can get constipated, I guess. Just keep feeding it what you're feeding it and it'll work itself out. And then after a month, when this bunged up beast had apparently not relieved itself an entire month, Clooney got up early one morning, crept over to the litter tray, squatted down over it, and then took a massive human-sized shit, and obviously freaked the hell out of the cat's owner, thinking it just obliterated, it's done its own body weight in a single dump.
See, that's one of those stories that probably doesn't make it to the article when he wins one of those sexiest man alive polls. It's just a picture of George Clooney squatting over a litter tray.
Straining, his hamstring quivering in the early morning light as he handsomely squeezes out a turd in the name of a practical joke.
I mean, I admire the commitment to it as well.
Yeah, I mean...
a month-long joke.
The punchline being the fact that, the person who's kind of let you stay in the house, oh, you just took a shit in my litter tray. Get out.
About it.
Envious, impressed, weirdly emasculated.
I'd imagine so. I mean, I've been watching reruns of ER recently, and it's going to be hard to take.
You have a full-time job. What are you doing? Rewatching a show from?
It's not on during working hours, is it?
I know, but it means you've got limited free time, and there's new stuff coming out all the time.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Are you rewatching a bad show from
20, 30 years ago? Jesus.
You're watching a show older than you.
I don't know. Is the answer.
Sorry, I'm not telling you how to live your life.
It sounds strangely like you are.
Okay, so you're rewatching old episodes of ER.
Yes.
Where are you going with that?
But that's it. Oh, yeah. Sorry, you distracted me. I was just going to say, it's going to be hard to take it to, like... I don't know, every time I see him now on screen, I'm just going to be thinking, that man is shit in a litter tray.
Oh, right, because he was in...
He was in here.
Sorry. Oh, right.
Were you not aware of that?
No.
Did you just think that was a really weird segue?
That's why.
Here's a story about George Clooney shitting in a litter tray. On a side note, I've been watching 90s dramas.
Well, that's why I said go on, because I didn't know you were going to get there. And I thought there was going to be like, an episode revolved around...
George Clooney shitting in a bin.
It's not necessarily him, but I don't know, maybe like constipated cat. Or, I know it's a doctor, not a vet, or maybe it's a scatological medical problem. But that makes more sense. And now I just sound stupid for giving you such a go over a throwaway joke.
You really need to work on your pop culture reference. At least you knew ER was a show instead of being like you've been watching an American hospital.
What CCTV footage?
Yeah. So we're getting there.
Honestly, I don't know where my popular culture... I
wouldn't mind, but we spent most of our teenage years watching films, so I don't think...
I don't know what's happened. I don't know whether I've seen all this stuff and I've forgotten about it, or I just wasn't paying attention in the first place, but I swear there's just huge gaps in my popular knowledge base.
Yeah, maybe you need to see a doctor.
Yeah, maybe I need to stop shitting in a litter box. Anyway, it's not the most highbrow topic I've ever done.
No. And he is now married to like a human rights lawyer.
She got any cats?
Just goes to show that one day you're shitting in a litter tray, and the next day you're world's sexiest man and marrying.
I think he was already considered pretty sexy when, not necessarily at the exact moment of, but at the sort of general, like when in 1993. Or maybe that was it that made him sexier. Maybe that's his, like, Achilles secret.
Oh, shitting in a bin. Is that your beauty tip? You too can look good, just shit in a bin.
Look, if you already look like George Clooney, then miraculously, shitting in a bin won't harm that at all. So that's the first of my two topics. Chris, what have you got for your second one?
If I was to ask you to describe what you think a banker looks like, what sort of things would you say? Typical banker.
I know, a fairly bland suit.
Yeah, that sort of thing, just...
Maybe a briefcase.
Probably like 50-year-old man or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, back in medieval times, the image of a banker would have been a knight covered head to toe in armour carrying a big fuck-off sword.
I mean, commutes were more dangerous in those days, but I don't think that's the reason.
Well, actually, in a way, it kind of is. Because modern banking, such as it is, was actually invented by the Knights Templar, famed in the Da Vinci Code and millions of other conspiracy theories. But they basically, as well as being knights who went around stabbing folk, as knights are wont to do, they also invented banking. So basically, let's just wind it back to the 1200s.
Right, so this is after the Jesus times.
Way after Jesus' time.
Right, okay.
Although Jesus does make a sort of
cameo.
Yeah. So
he was like an old Stan Lee.
Yeah.
I had to pop up and everything.
Yeah, so London's oldest bank is actually Temple Church, which was the home of the Knights Templar in London, because they had branches all throughout Europe. So 1100s, 1200s, back when the Crusades were a thing, and the Knights Templar were a religious order of knights. So, they'd spend their days praying and, monk type stuff, but also go around stabbing folk.
Monking off.
Yep. And obviously the Crusades were to recapture the Holy Land. So what would happen is obviously the knights, and not just the Knights Templar, but all the peasant soldiers and everybody, they went off and conquered the Holy Land again. And then that was to open the way for Christian pilgrims to go from Europe to go see where Jesus used to hang out. And that was an expensive hobby, travelling all the way from, say France or England all the way to Jerusalem. And so obviously you'd need money to pay for stuff. But if you walked you know, again, travelling from all that distance in a time where laws were a little bit, I don't know, the enforcement of laws was a bit lax if you're in the countryside, made them a target for robbers. So what the Knights Templar came up with was you gave them all your gold and they gave you a piece of paper. You know, so say London, you're setting off from London or Canterbury or whatever, you deposit all your gold and your turnips and whatever other valuables you have.
It always comes back to turnips. It's our only like common reference point. Whenever we mention like any time between like 800 BC and 1400 AD, it's like we just assume turnips were part of their daily life.
But weirdly though, I only assume the turnips turned up after the Romans left. So the Romans left and the turnips just appeared and disappeared again as soon as Columbus found potatoes. But anyway, so you deposit all your stuff there. The knights would give you a piece of paper, and then when you got to Jerusalem, you'd hand that piece of paper in to the Jerusalem branch of the Knights Templar Bank, and they'd give you, you know, not the same golden turnips, but, you know, the equivalent amount of golden turnips. And so they'd have like a special code written in it so that they, you know which one, you know, make sure there was no forgeries. Because, yeah, again, you'd have to be quite bold to rob a bunch of 6 foot tall, heavily armoured knights.
With, as you described it, a fuck-off sword.
Yeah. And because they did that, they got absolutely filthy stinking rich. Because it turned, as we found out in modern times, when you allow like one group of people to not only control all the money but also make up all the rules involving it, they tend to find themselves siphoning off a bit off the top, even though they vowed to take a vow of poverty.
Oh, well, it's like paying taxes if you're rich enough these days. It's sort of optional, essentially, once you get to a certain level.
Yeah, exactly. The only problem was, though, because that also meant that they amassed all this money, and then they also did what modern banks do as well, where, you know, they start loaning it out and charging interest and those type of things. And again, much like modern banks, at one point they even kept the English crown jewels as a down payment. So that shows the level of power they managed to amass. So when you're like, when the king has to pawn his crown off to you, like that really shows the balance of power has shifted somewhat.
Yeah, from a monarch appointed by God.
Yeah.
to some dudes going, look, we're going to need a little something up front just to make sure it's all on the up and up.
The only problem with all this, again, was they, first off, when the Crusades sort of ended and they lost the Holy Land, you kind of lose your purpose when there's a bunch of knights protecting the Holy Land. But the other problem was, again, like the King of England, it wasn't the only one they pissed off. They also pissed off King Philip IV of France by basically he owed them a lot of money and then said as a king he didn't have to pay them back. They said, yes, you do. And so the king just got them all rounded up and executed because humans are fucking terrible.
The thing is, if you're a king of a wealthy nation, that is a strong card you've got in your deck. Yeah. And I'm going to play my essential, royal flush, which is I will have you rounded up and killed. That is it doesn't necessarily work in modern times. If you get a letter from your bank saying, your account is overdrawn, you can't, like the HR meeting with people, you can't threaten to roam up everyone at HSBC and have them put to the sword.
I'll be honest, this episode, we really have found an alternate way of dealing with all the modern life's problems. It just involves a bunch of people with fuck-off swords.
Well,
a boss giving you a hard time at work, declare yourself emperor, bank getting annoyed because you owe them money on your credit card, just invade them and burn them at the stake.
It's a good post-Brexit model. Get your swords in early.
Well, and obviously we had all this thing about the, there's a financial crisis and, bailing the banks out and all that. But, the bankers should really just count themselves lucky that they weren't tortured by the Inquisition.
Relative fluctuations in the subprime turnip market didn't really affect the way the dollar did.
Yeah, also said apparently they worked as brokers as well. So, I've never had to buy something where you needed a broker, because that seems to be a thing when you got loads of money, but I don't understand that system. It seems to be when you're buying something really expensive because you're filthy rich, but for some reason not rich enough to just buy it, you need to also pay somebody to buy it for you. But yeah, apparently King Henry III of England bought some islands in not just off the coast of France, and instead of paying for it himself, the Templars bought it from the French, and then the king paid the Templars £200 a year for 5 years. I assume that's not adjusted for inflation, because that's really cheap for an island.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the size of the island.
£1,000 for an island, I mean, that's just like a rent for like a flat.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of upkeep with
an
island.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the utility bills are insane.
That is also true.
So maybe we are better off living in tiny cramped flats in for £1,000 a month. But never once have I been conscripted to, fight a war in the Holy Land. So,
yeah,
swings as they say. Yeah.
So yeah, I think in conclusion, let's fight bankers with swords.
As that famous saying doesn't go, not fight fire with fire, fight bankers with, for the last time, a fuck off sword.
Just imagine going into your bank manager's office and he just pulls out a mace.
You've just got turnips in your pockets going, sorry, I backed the wrong root vegetable here. Thud of the mace. You and what army? Oh, okay.
And that's when you whistle and the Roman legionaries all come storming in.
Fresh from the conquest of the HR department. Oh. Simpler times. So I'm afraid, this episode you've gone to quite highbrow, interesting historical things, and I'm afraid to do the second of my two quite lowbrow topics, and that's just the way it's worked out this time. But mine's about headlines in newspapers or articles or whatever. So Chris, I'll ask you, have you got a favourite ever headline that you've seen in a newspaper? Or
well, I saw one fairly recently actually in the Manchester Evening News. A mum offered sexual favours in return for fried chicken, and the takeaway staff said no, and she got violent, and they managed to fit all that in the headline.
What food stuff would you A, exchange for sexual favours, and then B, get violent for?
I feel that's a loaded question.
If any.
Any or every?
I don't know, I wouldn't do it for a salad.
Wait, hold on. You're offering sexual favours in return for the food stuff.
My life is a testament that there is absolutely zero market for any of my sexual favours.
Garlic bread's always worth it. Wait, why did I say that? No, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it says more about your love of garlic bread than it does about your willingness to share yourself. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-garlic bread by any means. My waistline would attest to that. But could my waistline actually attract anyone to give me garlic bread? I doubt it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this woman, it didn't work out for us, so she turned violent. All you have to do is offer it and then just start swinging.
Maybe she had a fuck-off sword, who knows?
Woman legionaries just turn up again. Like, it's a fucking busy day. Into HR, the bank. Oh, it's some takeaway.
Right, well, we're already covered in 2 layers of blood. Let's coat it with employees of Dixie Chicken.
Yeah, but now you'll get some garlic bread out of it.
Back in the day, they used to get paid in salt, and I very much see garlic bread as the modern equivalent. Anyway, right. So, the reason I'm talking about headlines is because there was a news story about one planet in our solar system in particular had a big year.
Is it Earth?
It's not. It's one of the other ones.
Oh, I thought you were just going to say it's been a big day for Earth.
Well,
lots of news headlines about Earth today.
The vast majority of the evening news does tend to focus on Earth until the time that we're an interplanetary species. Then we are going to get top billing for the news going, oh, fuck all happened on Mars today. Anyway, here's The Simpsons. Fuck off. Very rude news readers. So that's the watershed. Anyway, right. It was discovered, having long been speculated, that it rains diamonds on Uranus.
It does when I'm dancing.
See, you definitely get garlic bread if you can fire diamonds out your ass.
Thinking more, you're in a strip club shaking your booty for dollars, and some people throw diamonds. It's just how it goes.
We've been friends for so long. But I'm not. Nothing could have prepared me to be comfortable with you saying the phrase "shaking your booty for dollars." It's so. And I hate to get sort of nationalistic about it, but that is the most un-British thing you've ever said. I don't know why I felt
As if that's the problem with that statement.
I don't know why I felt a strange surge of well, you should be shaking your posterior for pounds sterling.
Pounds. Yeah.
Anyway,
so diamonds on Uranus
are a girl's best friend? I don't know. Now, it is the solemn duty of journalism to report things in a calm, measured tone, explaining all the facts without bias or prejudice. But the headlines, I think whenever there's a story involving Uranus, it is impossible to avoid making puns. So there were such headlines as "There's something very hard heading towards Uranus," scientists claim, and "Something huge and hard went into Uranus and it got very messy."
That is not a real headline.
No, it is. It appeared in the Metro in 2017. All of these are headlines that appeared in print.
Okay.
So following on from that story about raining diamonds and not necessarily shaking your booty for any currency, it turns out if you Google news stories about Uranus, and I will insist on calling it Uranus despite the fact at school, to avoid the snickering of immature school children, they insist on calling it Uranus, like the cowards they are. I'm sticking with Uranus, and I'm not quite sure if I'm comfortable with that phrase, but I'm yet to find a single story about Uranus that they've avoided sounding rude with. So, what follows is a series of headlines about Uranus, all of which appeared in printed media. Uranus gapes wide open for blasts of hot wind.
No. That's not a real headline.
It is a headline. I promise. I've written it down on a bit of paper. Listen to this.
No.
That's my bit of paper. It was a news story about they discovered the wind's a bit warm on Uranus. From the BBC, Uranus will be on display to the entire world later this month. That's the BBC! Even they can't help it. NASA wants to prove deeper into Uranus than ever before. I'm a child.
Oh, Christ. The best thing is, no matter how many, I like to think sometimes we've come up with some fairly clever jokes, We like to tweet some of that clever ones, and yet nothing will beat a Uranus pun.
The lowest hanging fruit, but they're so
juicy.
Yes. I don't know. I don't like talking about fruit and Uranuses too much. Not that you've got a plural one. Anyway, something huge went into Uranus and left it absolutely ruined.
No, it's not a headline.
It is.
That is something a teenage boy said. Stupid joke, and the teacher told him to get out.
We were that stupid child. We still are that stupid child because it's still making us laugh so much.
What newspaper wrote that as a headline and printed it?
That was the Metro as well. And finally, my favourite, because it's the one that manages supposed to be silly and sinister.
Ooh.
Uranus will be ominously hanging in the sky. I'm sorry, I've not got more to say on this topic.
I guess it's just a gift that keeps on giving.
I've often thought about that about Uranus. This might be the podcast with the biggest disparity between the topics we brought this week. No, most of the time, we'll both have one based in art or history or science, the shit that we put on all our promos that we say we talk about, and then one absolutely fucking stupid thing, or even the intention of talking about something serious and then just diverting into dick jokes.
Yes.
I'm afraid this week I brought you nothing but
Uranus.
I bring that
You're
every
ruined.
week. Don't say I've ruined Uranus. I like you as a friend. You're great, but let's keep Uranus out of it.
Podcast is just nosedived from the high intentions we briefly held for about a minute.
We are technically grown-ups with full-time jobs. Degrees from reputable academic institutions.
Well, so did the people who wrote that thing, probably.
What? The person who wrote something huge went into Uranus and left it absolutely ruined. It's the word absolutely. It's so unnecessary.
Yeah. Also, you're definitely factually incorrect. Like, Uranus is a gas giant. Like, it's
Yours
like a
might
million miles across or something stupid. Like,
also-
what could possibly have absolutely ruined this thing of mostly, like, hydrogen or something?
Yeah, it's
Like,
Uranus is
nothing,
still fine.
Nothing ruined it. Yeah, something hit it. Like, what, did we fire a probe into it or something? I don't know, maybe even an asteroid. And then nothing happened. That's what happened. It wasn't absolutely ruined.
You're saying Uranus can take the hit?
It can. Who's Uranus? Uranus was Saturn's dad, I think. I don't know, I can't remember my Roman mythology.
Don't try and remedy this appalling topic with a last-ditch attempt to make it, you know...
I'm desperately trying to dig us out of this hole, so to speak.
Fucking hell. Nothing's going to dig us out of Uranus. With it so firmly stuck in...
In Uranus.
Pathetic. Like it's not all my fault. Hey pals, make sure you keep listening after the outro, because there's a message from some fellow podcasters about their podcast, which we think you'll really enjoy. And that brings us neatly to the end of episode 25, a quarter century of laughter, learning, and lewdness from your two favourite Chris's. Oh, admittedly, the Chris's who do a podcast called Cooking with Grief.
I was going to say, I'm not even, like, we don't even make my list of, like, top 10 favourite Chris's.
Who else is on your list other than us? Oh, sorry, not even us. Pine?
Pine? Well, I mean, you got the Pine, Pratt, Hemsworth, Evans. Obviously, the American Chris Evans, not the annoying radio host.
Yeah. Christopher Lee.
See, Cristiano Ronaldo. Oh, Christopher Lee, that would be a good one. Christina Hendricks. Who else have we got? Kristen Scott Thomas, maybe?
Christopher Isherwood.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, you're right. It's a common name, and we are way down that list.
Yeah, honestly, I think if I had enough time to sit and think about it, we probably wouldn't even crack up my own top 50.
Like, I get me not making your list. You should be somewhat important to yourself.
Yeah, but have you seen the Captain America films?
No.
Of course you haven't.
They came out this century.
My next thing was going to be, have you seen Cristiano Ronaldo, like, overhead kick? And of course the answer would be nope.
Nope, you know, but I've seen you eat an egg.
Have you?
Probably.
I don't think you have.
Oh, okay, well, I'll add it to my bucket list then. I've seen you eat a Chinese.
That is true.
So, you know, I can't say that about Christopher Lee.
That is also true. And so if that was your one and only criteria for judging Chris's, I'd be storming ahead.
When it comes to eating an egg, undecided. But a Chinese, you're definitely in the top 50. But anyway, so, if your parameters are your two favourite Chris's who do a podcast called Cooking with Grief, and unless astronomical odds are against us, I have been one of those Chris's. And, you know, you've been the other one.
That is also true.
And so, if I can speak for both of us, we want to thank you for listening, and we'll be back next time with more didactic discussions and digtastic diversions.
Oh, good alliteration.
Thanks very much. So, goodbye, and be good to one another.
Yeah, what he said.
I really want to see you eat an egg now.
So creepy.
Not in a weird way. Just
it's just the fact that it's just one egg. Why not like an omelette or something? Why's it have to be like a singular egg?
no, I want to like a hard-boiled
Hard-boiled
egg, shell and all, just in one bite, like a crow that like sabotages other birds' nests. Well, I know it doesn't swallow it whole; it just sort of pecks them. But... So if you follow us on Twitter, do let us know what kind of egg you'd like to see Chris eat, and he'll live stream it somehow, or take a photo of him eating an egg.
Yeah, okay.
What do you mean, yeah?
I guess. Why not at this stage? I'll do anything for fame.
We've got very different ideas of fame.
Oh, man. Let's just go.
Signature smooth outro. Okay, I'm hitting snop. No, I'm hitting stop, not snop. I don't know what snop is. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cooking with Grief. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to recommend it to a friend. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email cookingwithgrief@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter. That's @cookingwithgrief. If you'd like to hear more episodes, then please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you've got the time, then it'd be great if you could leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you.
Calling all sports fans, are you looking for an alternate source for sports news, scores, takes, and updates? Well, look no further. On Franchise Tag Sports Podcast, hosted by me, Eric Salas, with the help of frequent guests, we'll give you all the latest and greatest on sports. That's right, I'm talking NFL, the occasional NBA and MLB, and yes, a lot more NFL. I've always loved watching the NFL, and there's no better way to talk sports than flipping on a microphone and giving my opinions on what goes on around the league. Tune in every week for brand new episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcasts. You can also find us on Twitter at Franchise Tag Pod and on Instagram at Franchise Tag Sports. It's the Franchise Tag Sports Podcast. We got the sports, you just gotta press play.